I just got through a little while ago checking out the NFL draft, and I happened to notice a couple of things, but I had thought I was going to take a pass as far as making a video about it, but I had to go out to the market, and it was about a 10-minute drive there and a 10-minute drive back. And all the while there on our local, well, actually it wasn't a local, it was a syndicated sports radio show, they were jumping up and down about certain players that were drafted. And I got to tell you, I got totally pissed off to the point that I was waiting for them to give out their phone number so that I could call into the particular radio show and get on the host and basically call him out for having a double standard. Now, in case you weren't aware of it, there were at least 3 players, all of them black, that were drafted between the 2nd and the 7th rounds. The person of most note is Joe Mixon, and he was drafted by Cincinnati. The second person of note was Khalid Bentley. He was drafted in the 7th round by the Cleveland Browns, and the third person of note was Jordan Lewis. He was drafted in the 3rd round by the Dallas Cowboys. Now, let me just go over a couple of things. Number one, every last single one of these kids, and I'll call them kids even though they're young men, okay, were approximately 18 to 19 years old when they got into the various situations. The common thread amongst all of these individuals is that they were accused of, I guess, it's not spousal abuse, but domestic violence as far as laying hands on a woman. Now, in my opinion, and it's strictly my opinion, if a woman lays hands on you, all bets are off. Now, yes, you need to act with the appropriate amount of force in order to defend yourself, but a lot of the times we're dealing with young men who do not have the emotional maturity in order to realize what's going on and to think before they act. Now, in the case of Joe Mixon, this woman laid hands on him not once but twice, and the second time she went to choke him. It was at that point that he struck the woman, and obviously these are not little guys, these are big men, but when he struck her, obviously he was going to do damage. And when it was litigated in court, he basically paid the price, number one, as far as being on probation, because there was a videotape out there, and you can go out there and see it for yourself as to what happened. But he basically ended up getting no jail time. He got probation. He was put off of his college football team for a year, and he further pays the penalty of losing first round money, which is millions of dollars, not hundreds of thousands, it's millions of dollars. He got drafted in the 2nd round, and the consensus is that he was a top 10 pick, period. Okay, now the second person that I want to talk about is Khalid Bentley. Now, he just had a situation with a woman who laid hands on him, and he struck her as well. Again, I'm saying, and so was he, that it was in self-defense, and his situation has not been litigated yet, but he's telling the world through his attorney that the charges are going to be dropped because it was clearly a case of self-defense. Okay? He was, as a matter of fact, trying to get away from the situation, and the woman involved would not allow him to do so. So, you know, that one is still out as far as any type of finality is concerned. But those two are getting a tremendous amount of commentary from the sports commentators across the country. And both of them have paid a significant price as far as the dollars that they lost by having their draft positions drop. And in Brantley's case, he has already been told that even though he's been drafted, he's not going to be offered a rookie contract until the situation basically comes to a head as far as law enforcement is concerned. So he's sitting out there in limbo right now. But there's a hell of a lot of difference between second round draft money, which is where he was projected to go before the incident occurred, and the fact that he dropped all the way down to the 7th round. Now, the third person that you are not hearing a whole heck of a lot about is Jordan Lewis, who was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. And I got a theory on that one. Mr. Lewis also is claiming that his situation is going to disappear, and that he acted in self-defense, and there was really no quote-unquote physical confrontation. The woman basically called the police and made a whole bunch of felonious charges, which he believes are going to be totally dismissed. But you don't hear a lot about that, and the reason that I believe you're not hearing a lot about that is because it's the Dallas Cowboys, and you don't screw around with Jerry Jones. Now, as far as I'm concerned, we need to wait for there to be an adjudication of what happened with these last two individuals. We already know what went down with Joe Mixon, and they need to leave him alone. Now, if you recall, last year when the Dallas Cowboys drafted Ezekiel Elliott, he also had something hanging over his head. And he was completely cleared by the local law enforcement. But funny thing about that, the NFL has never closed their investigation. And Jerry Jones is making big noise about the fact that they haven't closed this thing, when in fact he has been found not to have any type of liability or jeopardy as far as law enforcement is concerned. So now, I don't know how many other guys have situations that got drafted, but I do know that bullseyes have been painted on the three individuals that I'm talking about. They've already, all three of them have already paid the price as far as dollars are concerned. They were all young men, and again, they didn't have the, I guess, good judgment to completely get away from the situations, though in all three cases, the situations were not their fault. Now, if we're going to jump up and down about 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old young men who all three have clean records, never been in trouble with the law, and have come into this situation, I want to know where all the people were and are that were not jumping up and down on Bill O'Reilly, who has documented domestic abuse against his wife and his children. Nobody was screaming blue murder about him, and they still aren't, even though Fox has finally let him go because the advertisers, had started dropping him like hotcakes. But again, double standard here. Give these kids a break. If we're going to hold 18-year-old kids to such high standards, i.e., there were some sports commentators that said they should never have been drafted, then we need to hold everyday citizens who work jobs, and they, at the same time, should be fired from their jobs for any type of domestic abuse as well. But no, there's not going to be any call for that, because that strikes too close to home. So, again, get off these guys, give them a break. They made a mistake. Now, if it happens again, all bets are off. But it's my feeling that they have come close enough to the flame that they've learned a valuable lesson. And I believe that all of them, no matter what happens with them in the NFL, I don't believe that you're going to hear anything further as far as domestic abuse is concerned. Now, this is just my opinion, and obviously you're welcome to yours, but I got a funny feeling that if these guys weren't of the complexion that they are, and the people that they were accused of, I guess, abusing weren't women, we wouldn't really hear too much about this. Anyway, that's just my take on the whole matter.